Hey, praise the Lord. This is Pastor Levon Brock of the House of the Lord Church in the city of Virginia Beach, Virginia. I'm coming to you not on the behalf of our young adult ministry, but I'm coming to you as a citizen in the United States of America in the city where I reside in, which is Chesapeake, Virginia. This is Black History Month, and I thought I'd take the opportunity to talk about a few things on my mind. Originally, I'm from Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is a predominantly community of Caucasians. I've been blessed, I would say, to have the opportunity uh, to live in the city of Portsmouth about 30 years ago. Lived there about almost 4 years, and I have owned property in the city of Chesapeake in the South Norfolk area, going on 14 years, and reside in Chesapeake going on 8 years. There's a lot of issues in the African American community. When I say African American, I mean predominantly the part of the community, the city, where is predominantly African American. There's a lot of neglect by the city as far as maintaining the areas, the streets, the sidewalks, the overgrown trees, the flooding in the streets, the proper signage, and all the above. Uh, for going on the last 2 years myself, I've been calling the city and complaining about the conditions that have been neglected for who knows 50 or 60 years. Also, have not only have I talked to the city, uh, but I've also talked to the citizens who live in the cities, who live in the African American community, which are Black people. And I found the problems on both sides, of course. First of all, the cities, the municipal staff have not done due diligence for Black taxpayers as well as white taxpayers in making sure that our communities are getting the same treatments. In other words, we pay taxes as African American citizens, those of us who do pay taxes, like Caucasians who pay their taxes. We deserve the same conditions in our streets, sidewalks, trees trimmed. Streets should not be flooded. Sidewalks should not be, broken up, busted up, and the potholes, which cause a lot of automobile damage. Myself, I have over $3,000 worth of automobile damage, which I would contribute to the potholes in the city of Chesapeake, South Norfolk area. And I brought all these things to the attention of the mayor of the city, Mr. Rick West, and he was even nice enough, Mr. Rick West, Mayor West, to come to my house and walk the streets with me to look at the conditions. And he was amazed himself about the neglect in the South Norfolk area of Chesapeake. And so I don't hold the mayor accountable for every detail, but I hold you, my brother and my sister, and the mayor and all the city staff, those who work with public works, to give South Norfolk, Portsmouth, Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, Suffolk, Newport News, Hampton, wherever you are, the same treatment that you do in the predominantly white communities. It is a tiring work. It is draining to be on the phone over and over, talking to different departments, asking for some type of response to address the neglect and abandonment in the areas where we live. And I realized, as I said, by talking not only to the mayor and those who work in the city of Chesapeake, but also talking to the citizens, my neighbors, and found out through talking that many of them have automobile damage, car damage to their vehicles as well, but the information is only known by communicating it. That's why I'm communicating with you all. If you realize that you're having a regular damage to your car underneath, tire, axle, CV axle, things like that, tie rods. I'm giving some names of some things that I'm aware of. Many times it is because of the potholes where you live. And then when your car needs a front end alignment, costs $100 at least, most places you go to. It's because where you live, where you're driving all the time. And some of you just don't know how to drive. I'm trying to say that as kindly as I know how. You see a speed bump, which is not a pothole, you should slow down because you're tearing up your car, and you can do up to $1,000 worth of damage just riding over the speed bump like it's smooth highway. It's not. But other than that, I'm speaking of the neglect, the potholes, and the curbs, the grass. All of these things are areas of neglect by the cities, municipal staff that we live in, where we live. And I found out as a citizen, doing all that I can do, I go out daily, sometimes 2 and 3 times a day where I live, and pick up the trash that other citizens throw in the street. Many times we would like to think it's the children, but I believe most of the trash that I see in the street is thrown in the street by adults. And, we have a lot to do as a people if we're going to rise up and leave a legacy to our children as far as how to live as citizens in this United States of America. We can spend the rest of our lives talking about what white people have not done and what they should do. And in many cases, we are right about the neglect, the racism, the prejudice, all of that. In many cases, or most cases, we are correct. But we also have some issues of our own. We're not concerned in most cases about doing something about the conditions where we live. And so when I say I go outside and pick up the trash, well, of course, I didn't throw the trash in the street, but I was raised by a mother that taught us to clean up where you live. Start somewhere. The best place to start is where you live. Anybody can complain about what the city's not doing. And as I said, we are right about the city, the municipal staff not doing what they're doing. But what are you doing, my sister? What are you doing, my brother? Are you contributing to the neglect, to the abandonment, to the abuse, to the trash in your street? Are you contributing to the poor appearance of the community that you live in? Or are you doing something to clean it up? And so in order for me to be able to say something to you, I have to be an example myself. And that's why I'm coming up here. I see myself out there picking up trash, and often the neighbors put couches and mattresses and everything and leave it out there. Well, it's not my job to call the city and ask them to come to pick it up, but I don't like looking at it. So I call every time I see, or just about any time I see it. I'm saying, brother, sister, we have an obligation to clean up where we live and to not just try to move. When we move, what we are doing is breaking down our communities as African American people. We're dividing ourselves, and some of you believe by moving away to a community where there are less black people that you're going to be better off. But that's absolutely not the truth. The reason many of you why you want to leave the African American community or do not want to reside in the African American community is because the people who live in the African American community are just like you. Yeah, they're just like you. You're lazy, and you don't have any interest in doing something as a leader to your people, your children. If nobody else you see as being your people, your children, your nieces and nephews, be a leader to your children your nieces and nephews, and don't just live in a place where trash is in the street and you say because you didn't throw it out there, it's not your responsibility. We know it's the city's responsibility, but we also know that the city or the cities where we live in the predominantly African American communities, they're not going to do what they're supposed to do, especially when you only have one or two people who's complaining about it, and this neglect is over 50 or 60 years. So I call upon you, my sister, my brother, African American sister and brother, to get on board and let us clean up our communities. Call City Hall, call the mayor, the manager. This is what I did, Send an email and ask them to send you a confirmation that you had conversations with them concerning neglect. If we bombard the cities with these complaints, we're going to get some responses. They are used to ignoring these poor conditions in the African American community. See, as I said, I believe I said it earlier, I'm from Virginia Beach, where the conditions were much better. And, I don't miss Virginia Beach. I accept the responsibility that God has given me to see the conditions of African American communities. In Virginia Beach, most of the African American communities have been broken down, and the people in those communities have been divided and moved somewhere else. You no longer have many African American communities in Tidewater, Virginia, like you used to, especially in Virginia Beach. Let me say that, especially in Virginia Beach. And as I said, the reason why many of you leave or don't want to live there, because the people who live in the African American community are like you. You're lazy. You think the only thing that you are responsible for is the problems that you make. But let's think about Black history. Let's think about Black history. Civil rights leaders in the civil rights movement. The problems that our people have faced for hundreds of years were problems that were brought on us, brought to us. They were not problems that we created ourselves. Are y'all listening to me? And so if the civil rights leaders had said or thought like many of you think, well, I didn't throw the trash in the street. It's not my responsibility for the mattress or the bicycle or whatever is laying out there. We would have never achieved any accomplishments as a African American people, because the civil rights leaders would not have had any initiative or anything to lead us to or to lead us from. But it's the mindset that they had and do have, because there's still civil rights leaders today, and you can be one if you understand what a civil right is. Being civil, not acting like a heathen, someone that's in the jungle. You're a human being, and if you can stand living somewhere where there's garbage and the grass is being overgrown and the streets are flooded and the trees are not being trimmed and the potholes are almost like you could play golf in the street. That's how many holes that are out there, and you have no problem with it. Well, it's because there's a problem with you. And I'm challenging you in the nicest way that I know how, but I'm not saying it weakly. I'm not being weak about the challenge. Why don't we clean up where we live? Clean up the appearance of the place. Do the best that you can. It's not all about having money. Many times we don't have money to do some repairs, but you can pick up trash. You can. You can buy some bleach and clean the mildew off your house. Rake the leaves out of your yard. There are minor details that can change the appearance of where we live. But everybody's so busy running and going and talking about where you live, and you want to move out of the neighborhood. When you move out of the neighborhood where you are or where you reside into another neighborhood, you just brought the property value down wherever you're going. You what I just said. You brought the property value down where you're going, because your character goes with you wherever you go. I said it right. If you move from the African American community to a predominantly Caucasian community, and if those people in that community begin to leave mattresses and old bicycles and throw McDonald's and whatever trash in the street, you're going to do the same thing because you are influenced by bad behavior. You hear what I said? But you can turn that around and try to be an influence of good behavior to those who are in the community, instead of allowing those who are a bad influence to influence you. And so I say we have a great deal of responsibility as African American people to not just repeat history, because in many cases that's what we're doing. We're repeating history because we don't know any better. But I spoke on last Sunday, I believe. I'm losing track. Either you can repeat history or you can make history. How do you make history? Do you have to be another Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King or Rosa Parks, W.E.B. Du Bois? No, all you have to be is you. Do something with your time other than sitting around and complaining about the conditions of where you live, where you reside, and how the people are. You start change by doing things that you can do. And when you change, you have broken this cycle. You are making history for your life, for yourself. You're no longer doing what you're used to doing. You're changing your pattern. You are making history for yourself. And anybody who knows you or have been knowing you for a significant amount of time, they will know when you have changed. Start making history by you changing, doing some things for yourself, be an influence to your own self. By doing that, somebody else said, hey, I see you changing. I see you doing some different things. I'm talking about positive things. And excuse me, positive. Because see, we all are given the same amount of time every day, the same amount of time every day. None of us have more minutes or more hours than the other person in a day. But it's all about what you are doing with your time. I have a writing that I composed that says, if you don't do something with time, time will do something with you. What are you doing with your time? It's almost 12 o'clock, about 12:01 right now. In another hour, it'll be o'clock. All of us have the same amount of time between 12 and 1 p.m. Some people are going to be doing some positive things in this next hour. But then there are many of us who are going to be doing nothing at all, but talking about or looking at or contributing to the poor conditions in the community where you live. I hope that I'm saying something to encourage you in this African American History Month of February, which is really African American History Month every month, if you know who you are. If you don't, talk to someone who's older than you, much older than you, who has come from the African American community and understands about the struggles that we have had to face and do face. Take some pride in your people and some pride in yourself, and don't just sit around and be, part of the problem, but do everything that you know you can do to be part of the solution. Now, as I said, I've lived most of my life in the city of Virginia Beach, and the conditions are nowhere near as poor as the conditions are in the other cities that I have resided in, which is Portsmouth, Virginia, and now Chesapeake, Virginia. It is not because these problems cannot be addressed. It is because the city manager, the mayors, those who are supervisors for public works or whatever department it may be, they have learned that they can abandon and neglect the African American community and not have any recourse of action that they have to deal with these problems because we don't say anything. We talk to one another to the point that we don't say anything at all, and we just go down and pay and have our cars repaired, or someone trip and break their leg on the sidewalk. You're going to go to a patient first or to the emergency room. You're not thinking that the reason why you broke your leg on the sidewalk or in the street, you're not thinking that it's because the city neglected to fill the pothole. You're not thinking that it's because the city neglected to repair the sidewalk where you live in front of your house. You say, oh, I tripped. Oh, my car is a piece of junk. Every time I turn around, I got to get this fixed and get that fixed. Your car is not a piece of junk. Your streets are a piece of junk. Your sidewalk is a piece of junk. But you pay taxes. I hope you do. Otherwise, you don't have much to say because you can't talk where you're not contributing, you understand, in a positive way. The city is neglecting and repairing the sidewalks intentionally. It's not, oh, we forgot, we're unaware of this. It's done by design. The African American community is not of any importance to the cities where it's predominantly African American people. But is it important to you? That's the question, my sister, my brother. Are you concerned about where you live? If you pay taxes, you should want to be compensated for the taxes that you're paying. That's what taxes are for, to provide for the needs in the community, in the government. I'm just paying taxes and say, oh, just take my money. I asked the mayor respectfully, do the streets look, or are the streets in the same conditions where you live as the streets are where I live? And the mayor answered me and said no. I asked the mayor, Mr. Rick West, I said, do you have to roll your pants leg up or, to go to your car or put rubber boots on, things of that nature because the water's so high in the street? The mayor said no. Do you have potholes and overgrown grass, in the street where you live, Mr. Rick West? And he said no. I said, well, I would like my streets to look at least like yours look. And he was very polite, very kind, and seemed to be very concerned about my complaint. But I'm saying to you all, I'm not taking anything away from what I believed about him at the time. That's been like July of 2018. We'll be there in a few months. I first began to complain about these conditions in November 2017. So before you know it, it'll be 2 years where I've been complaining about these conditions as one citizen. And I'm calling upon you, citizens of these cities where you are an African American and you live in a city where it's predominantly African American, to take your time and use it, especially for you who are on Facebook, and bombard Facebook with the complaints about your car problems because of the potholes, or your sidewalks not looking like they look downtown where the city buildings are, the police station is. We deserve the same treatment, the same conditions as the non-African American communities. That's the best way to put it, the non-African American communities. But if you don't say something, then you're not part of the solution. If you don't do anything, not only are you not part of the solution, you, my sister, and you, my brother, are part of the problem hugely. And I am challenging you over and over again in this live video, Facebook live, to think about being a leader to your children, your nieces and nephews, or to the little children that are not related to you at all that live in your community. I know they throw the trash down, but how about you picking it up? You influence children by example. If you smoke a cigarette, they want to smoke. If you drink, they want to drink alcohol. If you cuss, they'll cuss because they see you cussing. If they see you providing or demonstrating positive examples as a role model, they will emulate and imitate that as well. Not in all cases. I have children too. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I know not in every case your children will follow the good example that you put before them. But let's go after whatever percentage that we can get. Try to be a leader to your children, to your household, to your neighbor, to your neighborhood, to your community. And it's one thing for other people to talk about us, but it's another thing for us to talk about ourselves and do nothing to change the talk. We can change the talk, my sister. We can change the talk, my brother. You can get off of your do nothing and start thinking about every time I see a piece of trash, at least a piece of trash, a can or a bottle in front of my house. I'm not going to let it stay there, whether I put it there or not. I want my children to know that this is not the cesspool. This is not the city dump. Now, where I live out here, they're building a bridge, a small bridge. They're tearing down the old one. And I think it's going to cost about $22 million to build this bridge. And I said they're building a $22 million bridge to bring it down to the city dump. Because that's where, when you come down off the bridge, you're coming right down to the potholes in South Norfolk. That's where the bridge is. Coming down to the potholes, Liberty Street, Poindexter. Y'all listening to me? South Norfolk. The bridge is coming down to the city dump. That's what it is. Because there's nothing but potholes. Poindexter, Liberty Street, and B Street, and D Street, and all these surrounding streets, Seaboard, and Chesapeake Street, Jefferson, potholes, overgrown grass. Trees need to be trimmed. Let it rain a good rain. The streets are flooded. You can use a boat, a rowboat, to get down 20th Street. We can't do anything about that but complain. But the part that we can do, the Bible says, whatever your hand find to do, find something to do. And do it. It says with all your might. Do it with your might. Don't be lazy. Contribute to making change in the African American community, not looking at what you didn't do. As I said earlier, if the civil rights leaders had looked at it that way and said, well, I didn't cause us to be in this situation, we would not have the opportunities that we have right now. Stop thinking about what you didn't do and started thinking about what you can do. Listen, I'm about to go. I love you. I hope you can receive the things that I've said. Have any questions? Well, you can give me an email. Yeah, send me an email to bsfmny@wmconnect.com. That's B as in boy, S as in Sam, F as in Frank, M as in Michael, N as in Nancy, Y as in yes, at WMConnect, that's CONNECT.com. Let's conversate. Let's come together. You know, together we stand. Divided we fall. We need one another. And we can do this if we work together. Well, God bless you. Have a smile upon you. Have a good day.